welcome to Digesting the Soul. Today I wanted to share my personal story regarding my journey on having my DNA tested. Now, it's probably something that I wouldn't have pursued because I honestly thought that I always knew what my ethnicity was. But I had a family member who had a long conversation with once, and she believed that on my maternal side that perhaps there was information and things to be discovered that may not have been revealed about that side of the family. And that always piqued my interest. I love a good conspiracy theory and I like to do research. So I decided that in 2019 I was going to have my DNA tested. And I did choose to go through Ancestry.com, and part of that reason is that I had had another family member who had used Ancestry.com to do a lot of research and did a lot of genealogy, and I actually have all of that compiled research. So I have it for both my father's side and my mother's side. So basically, you go online and you order your kit, and I just want let everybody know that the price of it is usually $99, but if you wait for there to be a sale, that price goes down to $59, so usually around major holidays. And as you're filling out your application, they're going to ask you a lot of privacy questions. And obviously the biggest one is, do you want your DNA results publicly revealed on the Ancestry website? And I said yes, because that would allow my DNA to match with other people who have also been tested on Ancestry.com. So the package arrives in the mail, and it includes a small plastic vial, and what is required from you is depositing about a 1/4 teaspoon of your saliva. And then there's sort of a mini plunger with a solution that you mix, and the vial will have like your identification, your name and everything, very similar to where when you get your blood drawn on your blood vial, the same type of thing. So you just put it in the prepaid box and you bring it to the post office. And they basically had suggested it could take up to 8 to 10 weeks, but I actually got my results very quickly in about 4 weeks. And how you get those results is just an email. So one day I saw the email, my results were in, and you just click on the button, and I'll show you here. What you're first gonna see, it's just a 1-page, you're gonna see the map of a world. And what they're gonna do is highlight the countries in which your ethnicity matched. And then next to each country that matched, they're gonna give you a percentage rate. So like I said, I figured that I knew my highest percentage, and I was completely wrong. And it was very interesting. And so I matched at 70% for England, Wales, and Northwestern Europe. And why I was so surprised is on my father's side, my grandfather is from Italy, and I even have his records when he came over from Italy as a small boy at 5 with his family to Ellis Island. And I just always assumed, because I was born with olive skin and I have dark features, that I was Italian. So it really made me laugh, because these stories that we tell ourselves and make these assumptions, and I was absolutely wrong. And my second highest percentage that matched was France, and that was at 10%. So I was completely blown away. Now, I do want to point out one fact that will be useful if you are considering getting your DNA tested. In the example of matching France at 10%, that was just a single country. But as I said to you, the highest match is listed as England, Wales, and Northwestern Europe. So if you don't have the genealogy compiled and completed for you to determine the specific country for your ethnicity, you would then have to do that research. And it's important to know that purchasing to have your DNA sampled does not also give you a membership to go on Ancestry.com and do your own research. That's a separate membership, and it starts from like $20 a month to $45 a month, depending on how inclusive it is, and then you can do 1 month and 6 months packages. So fortunately, when I saw those 3 countries, I went through my big binder of genealogy, and I could actually go back on both sides of my parents, and going back to one side of my family went back to the 1500s, I think the other was the 1200s, and I could actually see where they were from in England, the actual county and town, and the what people did for a living back then, and obviously the names of everybody. So that was really, really fascinating to me and completely unexpected. So like I said, I thought that I would be a high percentage of being Italian, and I wasn't. It was actually my lowest percentage at 2%. In fact, I am more Nordic than I even am Italian. Norway came in at 4% for me. So it was really interesting. I think the only thing that was odd for me, kind of like a woo-woo thing, was that I have never been to Europe, and I'm always planning dream trips, and probably for about the last decade or so, I decided that the first place I wanted to go was England. And I have been planning this trip for years, and I have, on my bookcase, I've been accruing all these guidebooks in England and in Paris, and it's just amazing that I had no idea that my ethnicity would, the origins would be in these 2 countries that I've wanted to go. And I've never had that much of a desire to go to Italy. I'm not even a big pasta or Italian food person, and when I started thinking about it, even the foods that I like and how I eat are more English and French. So I'm not quite sure how all of that works, but it reminded me of this theory that I had heard, even about like past lives. They say if you want to know potential past lives, you look and you reflect on this life as to what your interests are. And I always thought that was a cool exercise to do, to try to get insight if indeed past lives are real and you believe in that. So after that happened, what does come with the purchase of having your DNA tested is you get an account on Ancestry.com, and this will enable you to make your own family tree. So you can upload photos, you can put births and dates and marriages or whatever you want. And then again, you get to decide, sort of like Facebook, if you want to put your family tree public or it can remain private. Now, obviously, I put everything public because I thought if I have DNA matches with people, I wanted to know. So my uncle had actually had his DNA tested on Ancestry.com, and I was unaware of that. So he was my first match. And basically what it does is it tells you how many segments that person has. And obviously, the higher it is, the closer your relationship. And so so it could be your uncle, your aunt, and then it would go like niece and nephew, and then it goes like first cousin, second cousin, and downward. So I matched like hundreds of people. And the only other thing I think I forgot to mention is that on your map, Ancestry.com tests for over 500 regions around the world. So it's pretty inclusive. So as I began building my family tree online, which was a fun exercise for me, I received a message one day from a woman saying, hey, I see that we have matching DNA segments, and we started to exchange messages. And very quickly, it started to look like that she was related to my grandfather on my father's side. And as we exchanged more and more information, it looked like she was saying her mother, she was looking for information for her mother, that to me, it appeared that my grandfather was the father of her mother. And what was really interesting is that this woman said, my mother was told that my father died in the war, and we don't have any information about him. So immediately bells went off in my head, because when I was a young child, I used to sit with my grandmother in her living room, and I loved to look at the old family photo albums, all the black and white ones. And my grandfather was a military man. He was in the army, so he was overseas. He was like in Africa. He was in many places, and we had photos of that, and I loved to look at them. And my grandmother would always like joke and say, yeah, he has children overseas. And I just thought it was a funny joke until a few years ago, I had gone to a family reunion, and a relative there had made some humorous comment that, and I'm not even sure what the topic or what people were talking about, but again, referenced my grandfather having another family. And when that event had happened a few years back, I had inquired to my immediate family and said, do you know anything about this? Like, I'm hearing this again. And they were kind of like, no, we don't know anything. Nobody revealed any information to me. And so I didn't go back to people who had already not disclosed, hadn't disclosed any information to me. I went back to the person who actually made this comment at their family reunion, and they told me everything and basically said that, yes, this woman contacting you is most likely a child from your grandfather. He was married to another woman, and we knew that there were children. We don't know how many. And I was completely floored. I obviously understood quickly that other people in my immediate family knew this, and they did not want to disclose this to me. I'm not sure why, and I've never inquired further with them. I know that they know that I found the information. It was relayed from another relative that was telling me the truth. And what was so fascinating to me is I was very close to my grandmother. Like, we were very close. We're similar in a lot of ways. And in the last 5 years of her life, we talked every single day on the phone. And I was saddened to think that there was a whole part of her life that she felt that she couldn't reveal. And my grandfather died in 1991 at 85, and my grandmother passed at 90 in 2012. So even in the years, many years that she lived without my grandfather, she still did not reveal this information. And I guess at some point in her life, she told one of her sons, and this is how this other relative had confirmation of it. And so it left me obviously with a lot of questions, and it was a bit awkward messaging this woman who had believed that, you know, my grandfather had died in the war and was told a completely different story. And you know, a lot of the questions I have is that, did my grandfather hide this from my grandmother until at some point it was revealed? Did he leave his first wife and his kids for my grandmother? Did my grandmother know at the time she married him and they had kids, or did she find out after the fact? Did the first wife say to my grandfather, you can never contact our children again? Did my grandmother forbid him to see his children? So all in all, it just feels like a lot of people missed out. And I understand that when you're born in the 1920s, the world was a very different place than 2019. And just culturally and morally, and how religion played a role in then. And my grandparents were married in 1945. So the age that this woman said that the mother was completely matched. Like, everything just panned out. But it was a very melancholy thing. I definitely, something I did not expect. And it makes you look back on all situations and look back at my grandparents' marriage and try to discern what those issues were and what they struggled with. And did my grandmother ever really want to tell me, or was she just, did she tell, you know, her children, never reveal this to any of the grandchildren? I don't know. We do live in interesting times with social media the way that it is. I feel like it's getting harder and harder to keep anything secret. If it's not caught on camera, we definitely have a much larger capacity to do research and to communicate these facts and things, you know, and share data and information together. So I am grateful that DNA can facilitate that for people, and especially people who might not know who their parents are, or have health issues and are maybe looking for some information, and that's why they're doing their family tree. So I'm sure it's different for everybody. and the reason behind that they do it. And since my data is still on the website and it's still public, I'm sure that, you know, in years to come, there could be other people who contact me. So that is, I think there's a saying like, be careful when you go out looking for something, you might just find something. And definitely never judge a book by its cover, because even I had created a story that I must be Italian because I thought I looked Italian, and then the DNA results were showing a very different story. But I'm glad that it's one that I could uncover, and I love research that isn't apparent on my channel. I've worked in the field of research for many years, and it's something that I actually love. So I'm all in on DNA testing. I think it's definitely something great when it's used for forensics and solving crimes and things. But I also think it has the potential for a new frontier to help us genetically in determining why diseases occur and how they occur, and when they use it in a medical aspect. I think that that's really exciting, and those are great advancements to look forward to. So in a nutshell, that was my experience. I would encourage anyone, after having my results revealed to me, because like I said, they were unexpected. So you may think that you know what your results are going to be too, and you just may reveal some family secrets in the process. So anyways, thanks for watching, and as always, I'm wishing everybody all the best and great health, and I will see you in my next video. Be free.